Excellent. Welcome everybody to the fourth town hall and final of 2021. So I've not got a full presentation tonight, so I'm not going to bore you all to death. But I've put some key points in there from recent releases and things like that. So I'll go through. So we won't be presenting for the whole time. It is our usual format of as an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and bring up topics. So as I said, we'll take a look at some recent releases. So progress since the last town hall back at the beginning of November. We'll also just recap on some of the product roadmaps. So I'm not sure if everybody's watched either the recording or read Luke's blog post that's attached to that. But if not, Christmas might be the ideal time to do some light reading there. Then we'll take a look at questions and discussion points. So that's also an opportunity for you guys to bring anything to the table that you wanted to discuss. And then we'll highlight some key dates for kicking things off next year. So recent releases. So I'm just going to highlight some key ones. So obviously there's been quite a lot that's happening, but these are some of the more important ones or the more substantial updates that have been released. So System Files updates was early November. So some of you hopefully have already begun implementing this, but that included some updates to site search. So you can now search using the slug and the metadata and the render. So it's a broader range for you to search through the content on items displayed. The sitemap's been adjusted, a minor adjustment there, so that you use the full slug of the homepage and not just the root URL. So that's good for SEO. And then web apps caching support. So the URL parameters working with the web app caching on pages, which is good for page performance. And then web app category item output. So when you, let me just minimize Zoom. There we go. So basically, when you're outputting items from either a web app or a module, of course you can say, okay, get me all the items within this category. Up to now, that included any sub items as well. So this update effectively allows you to say it only specifically within this, this one category, not any of its children. So some cool updates there for developers and the more technical sides of sites. Then we had the front-end module submits. So much like web apps, so being able to submit new web app items, which is good for sort of communities or perhaps blog commenting and things like that. You can do the same thing with the modules now as well. So you can have perhaps a little community on there and then have authors publish their own blog posts, for example. So you get full access to the modules there. Alongside that, with the front-end submit on modules, you can then, of course, define an owner of an item on a module as well. So those two go hand in hand. So good for secure zones and item ownership. Then portal, all sites usage. So hopefully you've all seen it. So if you're looking at your list of all sites in portal, you now see a little column in there that indicates whether or not your site is within usage, over usage, etc. So that should make it easier for you to manage site usage there and action any changes you need to make, particularly if you have a lot of sites. You can just toggle and find the culprits more quickly and take action there. So then we kind of go into quite a few e-commerce ones. So I think, last month again, we had the tax breakdowns. So support for effectively liquid tag support for pulling out final item price, final tax amount, and final price before tax. So you get some more variation there to display information to the customers and visitors on your site. Then we had the order database. The structure was adjusted there to improve the performance, but also reduce usage. So effectively flattening the database there, a little bit like we did for e-commerce at the beginning of this year, I think it was. And also on e-commerce was the cart front end. So I know a number of you, Nick, for example, your team, I think were one of them, were asking us to effectively introduce an option where you don't display our system CSS in the cart and don't call out to the page at all. So the system SiteGlide CSS there you can toggle that off, and then it's good for SEO because if you're not using the assets, they don't need to be loaded on the page. And not quite finally, but second to last, I believe, is the multiple payment gateways. So I think that's actually the next one. No? Okay, that's all right.
On the last page.
Yeah, it is on the last page. So with subscriptions, you can define a specific gateway, whereas on general cart checkout, of course, you can offer the multiple options, which is on the previous page. So just more control there over the gateway options, which is good. And data cleaning, which was actually, that came out earlier in the month in November, but it allowed you guys to tidy up any data that was sort of orphaned. So if you delete a whole bunch of products and you have the product attributes then just floating and not attached to anything, you can clear those out, which is good for managing site usage and things like that. Cool. So just quickly going to touch on some of the roadmap things and point you guys in the right direction for that. So if anybody hasn't seen either the blog post that Luke has written, so this was based on a lot of the content that Luke shared in the last town hall. That goes through some of our high-level roadmap views and also links through to the recording from last time. So we talk all about our plans for next year, all the key features we're going to be working on, including some of the marketplace modules that are being built and planned at the moment by existing agencies in the community, but also some ideas there for what you might like to do, either for your own sites or to offer to the wider community. So as you can see, we still have spaces, and not everybody has thought of all of the ideas. So if there is something that you're thinking about implementing, either for yourself in terms of turnkey solutions or to offer to the community, please do let us know. We'll be reaching out to some of you as well who have mentioned it over sort of recent months. And we'll be doing our best to keep tabs on who's doing what, so that we can kind of highlight any duplicates or perhaps even team you guys up if you'd like to, if you're working on similar things. So again, this was from the last town hall presentation, but just some ideas there for some of the things you could start looking at, all of which have been possible today anyway, if you could do some custom development, but developing it into a module would make it easier for those less technical. So interesting opportunities there. We'll just let Rox in. Okay. So at the end of the last town hall, Luke put some questions to you all, and we forwarded those in the email with the recording as well. So this is effectively where we'll open the floor up to you guys to either answer any of these questions. So have you all had any further thoughts on the questions that Luke posed last time? Or have you come with some alternative questions or topics that you'd like to discuss? So I'll stop there for now. I told you I wouldn't be talking forever. So it's straight over to you guys, really, open floor. So yeah, any further thoughts on these questions over the past month or so? Or have you got anything else that you would like to bring to the table to discuss tonight?
I ask a couple of simple questions, and I understand I'm not a web developer, so I'm a customer. Is there a way of printing out the addresses of customers? At the moment, I have to type them in, because if I copy and paste what comes through on the email to me, there's all sorts of irrelevant stuff.
Yeah, sure. So there's a few.
Very naive question, but it was something I could do with business catalogs.
Yeah, sure. So there'll be a couple of ways off the top of my head that you could go about it. One would be to have somebody set up an email template, perhaps for the workflow, that only contains the data that you would like to print. So the autoresponder might contain a whole bunch of other information, and then the workflow specifically holds that, so you can print it more easily. The other would be to set up a page, so you could reach out to one of the experts. I can put you in touch with some who could do it if you like, and they could set up a page that then you effectively load the content of the item, the case, in a page, and it forms a PDF that can then be printed in any fashion that you would like. I don't know, has anybody else here tonight been doing any projects like that? Anything with printing or perhaps packaging labels, anything like that at all?
Yeah, we've actually got a project that we're working on, that we're doing a packaging label, and yeah, basically exactly what you've described there, Martin. We're doing basically in the workflow email, what we do is we add a link with the item ID of the order, and send the user over when they click on that anchor tag, and then they can just print that page. We don't even have to do PDF. We can just do HTML as long as you set the width of the document to be the correct size. So yeah, not too bad to do.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Is that
So I
part of
asked
your,
my web
super-
guy.
Sorry.
I asked my web guy to go where?
So I would tell him to go to Josh. I mean, Josh has done it on previous projects. So so send him over to Josh. He's over at Siguri's,
Right.
and I'm sure they'll be happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
I was going to ask, is that part of your super checkout module? Which seem to go in lots of different directions, which we're looking forward to.
Yeah, there's lots of things planned for it. So yeah, watch this space.
Cool. You're not under any time pressure, obviously.
No, not at all.
Well, he did tell us it'd be ready by January. I mean,
He didn't confirm the year though.
that's true. Cool. Any other questions or feedback or comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say I use the workflow as well, the workflow notification for applications that one of my clients had their potential trainees do. And that actually worked out really well because most of the email browsers now have a way to print in, a pretty decent format. So the workflow notifications went straight to the manager and they printed them, and it was all good, color headings, all the question answers. And yeah, I was really happy with it because I was very worried about that component because the manager was involved. So
Yeah.
yeah, little bit of effort, but it's there now and it'll be reused next year. So it's good.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's it. Good to hear. Anybody else got any feedback or questions? Anything you'd like to discuss or raise? Any issues recently? Any successes? Has anybody done anything cool that they would like to share? Just checking chat. She's asking about Zoho Sync. Yeah, saying they've done it through Spider Sync, Sync Spider. I think Zapier was a bit limited with Zoho, if I remember rightly, Nick. They don't provide many endpoints, and I can't remember if that's Zapier's fault or if it's Zoho's. But yeah.
Yeah, I know we're just doing, for one of our bigger clients, we're doing quite a big, they've decided to go over to Zoho as a CRM. I'm not even sure what they were using before, but yeah, they're going to be doing all of their email marketing from Zoho as well, which we did run through a different platform previously. So I think it's a fairly well integrated solution we're putting together for them. So yeah, I'll check with the guys, but definitely connecting via SyncSpider on that.
Right.
So
Okay.
hopefully it's a Zapier limitation rather than a Zoho limitation at that point.
And what are their requirements? Are they just using it to sync the core CRM contacts, or are they trying to do more than that with like triggers or something, or syncing?
Yeah, so we're looking at every time a new form is filled in, that they get pulled in and then kind of check to see if they're an existing customer, and if they're not an existing customer, then fire them into a certain workflow, I guess.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you get up and running with that. I can't remember. I think possibly Helen. I don't think she's with us this afternoon, her time today, but she struggled with Zoho with Zapier. So that might be. I might reach out to her and let her know that SyncSpider is the one to look at.
Helen's just commented about using HTML, PDF, JavaScript. So I think Helen is here, but I'm not sure regarding that topic.
Limited PDF printing success with HTML. Zoho is very, yeah. Good.
Hey, Martin, I have a question
Mm-hmm.
regarding the new chat or no, the latest support chat.
Yeah.
Cool. Sure. So in the old one, it seemed like there were sort of threads, like you would write an issue and then you'd have a discussion about that issue. You could write another issue, discussion about that issue. Is it the case now that like it's just sort of a running conversation, and so if I have 4 different issues across 4 different sites, I'm just writing messages about those in the same thread? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, you have like one chat, and from there we can take multiple tickets. Now, at the beginning when we implemented it, it sounded like a really good idea, but we have heard feedback, and it sounds like you're possibly hitting it as well. Would you say it's a bit confusing for you to try and find if you're raising multiple things at once?
Well, I'll just say I have raised multiple things in the past, and it was like nice to have them in context, and now I have not had the occasion where I needed to raise things, but every time I raise something, I'm like, oh, geez, I'm glad I don't have 2 things to talk about or 4 things to talk about.
We've had multiple things. We find it really confusing, and
sure.
We lean on support too much. That's what's going on there, really. But
well, the intention was to introduce ticketing, so the intention was to release this single chat so that it's all in one place for you to find, but also introduce a UI where you could view and manage tickets that we or you had created, so that you could at any point pick up a ticket and find out what the status was. But we couldn't implement the solution smoothly enough for our liking. It wouldn't have been a good experience for you. If anything, it would have made things worse. So I believe the plan now is to at some point work on that internally. So we're just going to build it ourselves and offer a ticketing system where if anybody in your team submits a ticket or we create one, then you can all see it.
A little more detail on that. We were going to launch it at the same time. The main reason we didn't is that it would have been individual tickets per person, and we just think that doesn't work when you have teams of people. We could look to do an interim, but I think we'd rather do it properly. We decided to get up and running.
So let me understand. So it would have been like, so let's say I open a ticket, and then like Aisha opens a ticket in the same company, and now there's no cross visibility. Yeah, I can see why you didn't do that. That seems like that would be a mess. Yeah.
So I think we wanted to get this up and running. I think generally it's better to get something working and then expand upon it. So we wanted to get there's lots of things that are improved from the new chat on our side at least. But we can definitely see that the conversations piece is the next step to improve. So I think having one unified conversation per person is a good thing overall, as long as you can separate tickets and issues out into threads. So the idea of being able to always go to somewhere and know that that's your conversation with us, and that just carries on indefinitely, I think is nice, as long as you have the sort of being able to get updates on specific tickets separately. Do you think that would solve the what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the concept of ticketing, however it's implemented, whichever works the way for you, as long as like we have cross-team visibility of a ticket, you have cross-team visibility of a ticket, because I understand part of this is you having to route things to the right person to get an answer, or and I will say also, just on a positive note, I think the search for the new documentation is way better. It's much better organized. It's easier to find things. I looked for something today using something that really shouldn't have gotten me the result. It like wasn't a good enough search query, and it got me the result. So that was my fault, but I got it. And so I think that's been a definite improvement, for sure. But I don't know if those two things they're probably related, but
they are.
The chat tool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Definitely. No, we're definitely we're working on that, and we want to use our own tools where we can, but we also want to make sure that we put our time in the right places and focus on the right functionality. So it's definitely on the list. Going back to some of the earlier conversations tonight, this ties in really nicely with Marketplace. I think we want to show some of the things that can be done, and then being able to offer them to the community in the marketplace. And others are building things all the time as well. So we want to enable things first, and then improve and expand on things, make them easier afterwards. So we're definitely gathering feedback on the ticketing side of things and making sure, like, we wouldn't have known for sure exactly how to do it. Now we're seeing that from this kind of feedback. So I think we've got a good plan for that one.
Yeah, and for now, just so everyone's, I would assume actually a lot of you wouldn't know, but if you have got multiple things you've asked us about, you can ask at any time, ask any of us what tickets you have open at the moment, and we can list them for you. So we have ticketing on our side, it's just not visible to you. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured you had to have ticketing. That would be no way to manage all this incoming. Yeah, cool. I do have one other point, but I don't want to hog the floor if someone else wants to jump in.
Go for it.
No? Okay. So I kind of posed this to Matt the other day, but I don't know if he was the right person to pose it to. I just wanted to know how much, I know on the roadmap, like the editing experience in SciGlide is on the roadmap. It's part of consistency. I think specifically what we said was like consistency across, the editing experience. And like, as we see it, and as we now go a few months into customers using SciGlide sites instead of BC sites, right? There's going to be adjustments. That's fine. Like, part of that's on us to train them, right? But what I wonder is how much good feedback. I feel like you guys get bombarded with feature requests, but maybe you don't get like as many like use cases, or this is all speculation, but as many use cases or like connecting the dots across like a customer's experience. So I'll pull this together into an example. As I see it, there are 3 editing environments in SciGlide. There's the Studio editor, which you would mainly use if you built a site with Studio, which increasingly we're trying to do. There's like the page editor, which is the one that has like basically raw HTML, but it's color coded and it's like manageable. Like you can open and close things, right? It's like the code editor. And then there's the third environment is the rich text content editor, which is now the coding coloring goes away, the ability to like close things, open things, right? Close a div, open a div, that's gone. Now I'm just touching like raw HTML, and the file manager experience in the pages versus in the editor is a little bit different. So like those are the 3 environments that people are in. And for example, if one goes into the blog module or builds a blog with a web app, if you, for whatever reason you want to do that, then you're giving your customer like, hey, go blog. Like they're doing that editing basically in that rich text editor. Like that's where they're going to spend most of their time. But then if you're like, hey, go edit your about page, they're going to go into the raw HTML of the page or in Studio, right? Like depending on the Studio editor. So it's like, okay, so we've established the 3 environments, but the thing I wonder if you guys get exposure to is like what parts of that suck and like what parts of it are good, and because it doesn't all suck and it's not all good, but I wonder if and I also realize that they're built different ways, so I don't know what's possible to kind of like, hey, let's take this great part of it and like make it part of all 3 environments, through all 3 contexts. So I mean, I'm just curious what you hear about that kind of stuff.
the quick answer of the roadmap task, or the main high level thing to do, is have parity between them, so that the experience, at least for a customer, is similar or the same, because that's probably one of the biggest issues, is they do something in one place and it's not the same in another. So we 100% want parity. Obviously we try and take the good bits from one and add it to the other, rather than the bad bits. So yeah, I think getting the detail on which bits would be really useful. I mean, we can do parity, that's easy enough for us to do, but I think getting feedback on which bits work well, which bits would be nice to include. And the two experiences are different. I mean, editing a blog post or writing a blog post is quite different to building out a page. So it'll be interesting to hear what kind of differences you might need, but still give the same overall experience. So what we'll probably do, because that one's a Q1 task, we'll probably in the forum and in another one of these come to you guys with some in-depth questions and go into that in more detail. But as always, please do yeah, feel free to go into any of the detail on that and give us that kind of, like you say, I think connecting the dots is something that we do find hard to get. We do get a lot of feature requests. We do get maybe some bugs, but not always like here's the key ways to improve it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, it helps us as agency owners to have the parity too, because then when we train somebody, we can train them once on how to edit things, and then they can do it everywhere, versus, okay, this is how you have to edit things in a web app versus this is how you have to edit things in.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, the obvious answer for us would be to put the same editor in everywhere, but I think that's where the differences actually come in. You probably wouldn't want the same exactly the same tool for everything. So that's where I think we do need feedback in terms of which direction to go in.
and I also realize that there's probably still some things that will never happen due to platform OS limitations too, like just off the face of it, right? Like if you have a bunch of articles you're pulling into SciGlide, you're going to build a database. That just makes sense. Like you're going to do it in a web app. But if, for example, and I ran into this, we brought in like 800 articles into this site, and in BC, in those articles, each of them, we had like a little code snippet that was like, you know, in the context of the article, like you're reading the article, paragraph 2, there's a banner. It's like, hey, buy this course or whatever, and then keep reading, right? But you can't you can't drop a code snippet into an article because you can't put Liquid into the in context editor or the rich text editor. And so, yeah, you could drop an image tag and wrap it in it. Like you can kind of like find a way through it, but like that might be a thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that one's so much a limitation as, to be honest, you came up with a workaround which made the urgency drop on that one.
Yeah.
So
my understanding was that it was like a security risk to put Liquid into one of those fields.
We've actually had that discussion recently with Platform OS regarding things like email marketing, something we want to be able to do there. So it's not actually a security risk as such, and it's something we're working through in terms of how we would go about it. So I don't think it's a limitation.
Okay.
I think your workaround was a bit too, well, it solved the problem at the time, and especially with BC, there were other.
It's also like that's also like 2 years old. I mean, I understand like we're way beyond where we were 2 years ago. So that's totally fair too.
Yeah,
but that's cool. That's cool to hear that there's more open. You know, there might be more options there. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that one again.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, cool. Cheers. Does anybody else have any feedback they would like to share?
I just want to say, to answer number 5, where SciGlide's going to be 12 months from now, hopefully here.
In the same
still
place
here
now. Yeah, still here.
Yeah, no, you guys, you know, I had the couple of customers you work with, I work with SiteGurus, and they're very happy. So
Fantastic.
Good to hear.
I think that's great. And so I want to make sure you guys are still here. I couldn't make the last town hall meeting, so I don't really have anything extra to say other than that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously that was a natural consideration and concern given the Adobe news. So we've obviously talked to people about that over the last few years now. And yeah, there's a lot of measures in place to make sure that's the case. We obviously do have disaster recovery and backup options there, and Platform OS are there to assist with things as well. But no, definitely big plans. If you do get a chance to look at the roadmap recording or have a look at the blog post, you'll see that there's a lot going on, a lot planned to make it even more powerful next year. I mean, just for any that wasn't there, I think the summary is that we want to make the platform even more flexible and powerful and allow others to leverage that. So we're not necessarily going to build all of the detailed functionality. We're going to give you the tools to be able to build those things. And that's where the marketplace really comes in. Josh's example earlier of being able to solve that one particular problem themselves, and then maybe turn that into a module and offer it to others. I know Nick and your team are doing those kind of things. That's where we want to go. One of the best examples, I think, other than some of the UX improvements like the visual editor, would be triggers and notifications. If we allow you guys to build whatever kind of triggers you want, send out emails, automate things, that just opens up a whole load of opportunity, and we'll stick to making things possible. Does anybody have any questions on that, sort of high level of those kind of things, really, in terms of what the platform will be capable of, what you should sort of what you could look to be doing with it that you're not already doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty interested about how files are going to be handled for automation and those sorts of things. You know, we're looking to be able to migrate WordPress sites over into SiteGlide, or build portals where we're, you know, uploading images and those sorts of things. And yeah, the handling of all that is yeah, very, very limited. We have to do all of that via CLI pretty well.
So being able to do it more in an automated way, or from a UI specifically?
Yeah, so you know, if you look at say migrating actually a really good example that we have on quite a few clients is being able to use media downloads, or media uploads, can't remember what it's called, but we can't dynamically put a file into a media download using the API. So it really has to go in via a manual process, which is fine if you're just uploading one, but if you want to upload hundreds of items, it's not practical. So
that's a great example. On the screen now, you'll see under data, we've got custom API. We've essentially, to some extent, limited you guys by defining what the API is and setting the endpoints, and it's always behind because we're always adding new features, and then we've got to catch up with the API. So the custom API approach is going to allow you guys to do whatever you want. You'd be able to build your own queries and control that kind of thing. So that's exactly what I mean, Rox, about us focusing on making the platform more flexible, giving you access to the data everywhere, and then you can do whatever you want. And hopefully the more technical and experienced partners will be able to assist the less technical, perhaps, by using the marketplace and reusing things that you've built and putting a value on them. So yeah, we definitely want you to be able to tap into any component of the platform via API, via UI, via CLI, via anything really. It's just obviously up until September, we very much had to focus on giving you the very specific tools you needed to migrate sites. Now we can really look at where we want to take the platform and allow you to build pretty much anything. On your other point about, sorry, it's just somebody joining. I'm just trying to remember the first point that you mentioned. Oh, migrating WordPress sites. Yeah, so we could look at making the import tool more flexible on that, but we don't really know what people want to do with it at the moment. So it would be great to get that kind of feedback. And if there's certain things about a WordPress site or another platform that aren't working too well on the import, then let us know. And it might be a case of something that we do, or it might be a case of something that crops up in the marketplace if somebody's found something they've had to build, and then it's reusable or valuable.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, do you think?
Yeah, I didn't realize I could use the import tool for others than Business Catalyst. So.
Yeah, I mean, it won't work. So basically, we have to normally find things that are unique about a platform and make a conversion process or handle those attributes or pieces of code. So all we need is an example of where something doesn't work, and then we can fix it. And we did that for BC, for Muse. We've done it with quite a few WordPress sites and a few other platforms. So yeah, just let us know if you have any issues, and we'll try and keep that one moving for you.
Great.
And Rox, do your team have a use case? So are you guys looking to import whole WordPress sites? Like, I mean, typically we've heard complaints that code on older WordPress sites isn't amazing, and they don't want to keep it. So if your team have a need,
so we're not so interested in the code of the site, but we certainly want all of the things like the blog posts and the media files, moving all of those across, because that's the content that's important.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we built a brand new site for the clients using SiteGlide, but it's migrating all that data across.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We used a lot because we lifted quite a number of WordPress sites historically into BC, as well as lifting them then across to SiteGlide, and we got a long way with site scraping, and actually found that kind of a very usable tool to just lift the data from a particular website into a database, and then lift it straight up via the import onto a web app or a blog. So that's maybe a different angle, because one of the issues we have with WordPress is everyone is a different flavor, and that's the that consistency that SiteGlide need just sadly doesn't exist in a lot of cases with WordPress. So yeah, we found that scraping process was quite a good one to follow.
Yeah, I mean we've written WordPress export creates an XML file, and so we process the XML file, go and get all of the media and the blog posts. We've been able to create the blog posts inside SiteGlide, no problem, using the API. But the moving the images and PDFs and those sorts of things has been much harder. We have to then put them into a place, but then we use the CLI to upload them. So
yeah,
did you think
and everything's in a different folder with a year and a month, isn't it? Oh, kills me.
Do you think being able to do more with assets then via API is the missing piece?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're building portals for clients as well, and assets is important as part of that too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, we'll definitely take that away and check if there's a roadmap task on it, and if not, we'll create one and tag you in it.
Can I ask a consumer question?
Sure.
Are we going to have the ability to track cumulative sales of specific items off the website? This was something that we got with Business Catalyst. I could check how many sales of specific items had been sold in the previous 6 months, previous year, which was very helpful. Is it likely they're going to have something comparable?
Yeah, sure. So that's on the page as well at the moment on the screen under data. You've got reporting suite. So currently you can report on cases and orders, I think. We're opening that up to be able to create custom reports and save those reports. So rather than us say what those reports look like, you'd be able to define what kind of data you want to pull out and be able to go there and see it.
Okay, so I mean, as I say, I don't understand the jargon. I mean, it's not my field of expertise. So if I go to my website guy and say he can probably do this through reporting suite, it will be comprehensible to him.
He should be able to pull the data that he wants and create a report of that data. If you want to then make it more visual or do something with it, you might send it to another platform. But yes, he should be able to, once we've released that, he should be able to collate the data that you would like.
Yeah, but I direct him to reporting suite, do I?
Yes, at the moment it's only on, I'd have to double check. It might be orders and cases, but we are expanding that at the moment to allow.
It's cases and users right now.
Cases and users. Thank you. But yeah, the custom reports would allow you to customize the data you like.
So what does API stand for? Custom API.
Application something interface, protocol interface, I think. But it basically means sharing of data. So making data connect together between different platforms.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. It's a strange acronym, that one.
Yeah, that's why we shortened it and no one knows what it actually means.
Every field of study has its own jargon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Web development's a little bit special though, isn't it? So.
Yeah. You'd have fun with Latin names.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good.
Any other feedback or perhaps questions on the roadmap from last time?
I'm not sure if this is on the roadmap or not. On Business Catalyst, we used to be able to get like a basic, in fact, I was just double checking to see, maybe it's already there. Basic activity for the page, for the website, to see how much traffic you were getting and just the core keywords and that sort of thing. Just enough to give the client some data without making them too dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, so we decided quite a while ago that we weren't going to spend a load of time building. So I don't know if your experience was the same, but we found the actual reporting that the BC site provided from Adobe was not accurate.
Super inaccurate.
Yeah. So we pretty early on decided that we weren't going to be going down that rabbit hole. So what we're going to be doing is working and looking at integrating more closely with tools such as Google Analytics. So you guys, and many of you are already using them to accurately track your sites. So perhaps, next year at some point, we're going to be looking at what we can do to maybe make that more accessible from the admin for your customers.
Okay.
So.
Okay, great.
I think another consideration there is first-party data as well, and trying to look at which direction to go in. Obviously, we can provide data about the platform usage really well, and I think that's invaluable data that only we can provide, and we should, and that comes into the reporting suite. You've then got the whole third-party to first-party data change that's going on at the moment in the world. So I think want to see more of how that evolves, people adopting Google Analytics 4 and changing the whole way that they use cookies and everything. So we're probably going to stay out of that to some extent and adopt the right way to go. And actually some of that I think will be down to personal preference, how you guys want to use the data. But yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we provide any data that either you can't get elsewhere or is going to add massive value.
Well, Agency Analytics does a great job at pulling stuff in. So maybe there's a way for myself and others to kind of make it feel to the client like it's all in one place, even though it's not really all in one place.
As a great example, we don't want to go and rebuild Agency Analytics or Databox or all of the other tools out there. So we'd rather just make the data available and let you push it through to your chosen reporting suite. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I meant earlier about visualizing it. We're not necessarily going to help visualize it. We're going to provide the data.
But there might be a module that somebody could build that integrates a bit more closely and allows your customer to click through to like a front end page maybe, or something. I don't know, who knows what the
Well, one of the things we're actually doing very soon is custom UI for modules in the marketplace. So you'd be able to build your own modules with your own interface. via an iframe. So you can actually build your own reporting suite or Google Analytics integration, agency analytics integration. You could build whatever you wanted really and have it visible within SiteGlide.
Luke, what's happening with the reports? It's not on the timeline that we can see at the bottom of the screen there.
Can you just scroll down a little, Martin?
Oh, thank you.
So I've not specifically said which one it sits within, which means it's essentially floating at the moment. We've really specified that we want to do user roles, studio, contextual docs, triggers and notifications, and custom API as our priorities. Everything else is either smaller and fits in around it, or really going to be dependent on you guys leading us and telling us what you need.
Because reports came out as a #1 sort of thing that we wanted a while back.
Yeah.
And that whole data column is really what I'm focusing on at the moment. And the custom APIs, that timing is really good for a project I've got upcoming, personally. And the reporting suite and the total control of data, that's a key area really that I think needs to be looked at.
I believe, and I'll double check afterwards or in a second, that it was actually in ahead of those things. And because we've been working on it, I didn't put it in that list. So I believe it's very much one of the next things, but it will still be quite iterative. There's saved reports, saved custom reports first. Do let us know if there's specific data or requirements that you would need.
Yep, we'll do.
I'll go and double check that now, and I'll let others
thank you.
ask away. No problem.
Are there any particular, as Luke was touching on, any particular data points that you would need for the project you have in mind? So beyond sort of cases, maybe orders and CRM users, any other fields or areas that you need to access through that?
Web apps as well, actually, Martin. To be able to report on web apps. I know you can export them, but because we use web apps to store data from secure zones, it would be great to be able to also have a configured report.
Yeah, okay.
So I can see that, sorry.
No, go
on. I can see that custom reporting for web apps and modules is in our immediate list. So secure zones, I'm not sure about. That's something we'd have to.
Oh, sorry, it was just more that we were using web apps in secure zones. So for like membership type websites, that's why I was trying to say the importance of a web app report rather than an export. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you don't have a need to both access the web apps and filter them based on secure zone or anything like that. It's just simply
sorry. It's just that it's more customer filled. It's basically a database table. So some fields are relevant in different ways. So just a report on web apps would be brilliant. Yeah, those types of web apps.
Cool.
Very high level, just from reading it, skimming it, functionality is being able to select the web app or module from a drop-down list. It can actually be multiple ones. Then pick the columns that you want to report on, and then you can filter by things like name, created at, updated at, and then you'd be able to take actions as well. So you could filter by secure zone, and then you could take an action of adding them to a secure zone or enabling them, disabling them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that was the other thing too. That would be handy because some of that stuff now you still to do manually in terms of, or the other one was that's not quite related to reporting, but the secure zones being able to turn bulk people off the secure zone at once.
That would be part of
off list. I was just like you can add them to secure zones now in bulk, but you can't take them out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We could really use that too. That would be a super useful thing.
Don't worry, I'll have a request logged on that one.
That's interesting because from the reporting, it looks like we would let you set a secure zone in bulk, but yeah, unset.
We
could be
can
pretty
do
handy.
that right now. We do that all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it's really good. But being able to take them away would be really helpful too.
Yeah, I will make sure that's in there.
Awesome. Another question. So, Grant Senior, will there be any developments with shipping options based on weights of a product? Luke, can you remember? I can't remember off the top of my head specifically on that roadmap point. I don't suppose you can.
I can't remember exactly, but our general stance on this kind of thing is make it more flexible to do unlimited the different kind of things you might want to do. So it probably sounds like custom fields on shipping options, or maybe some logic around that. I'm not actually sure how that would. Let me just read this. Nick said that we'd be able to do this, add weight to a product as a custom field, create the shipping and use JavaScript. Yeah. Be good though to have set fields to do this. Maybe part of Josh's super e-commerce module. Yeah, again, that's where it's exactly an example of what we want to do. We want to make sure it's possible, and then maybe you guys, if you want to set it as a default, that's where modules come in. You can do whatever you want and make that a default for you by adding that as an optional module.
Yeah, we may get into looking at that in the new year. We're kind of just going to look at some payment gateway integrations as our first modules, and then I think that shipping module would be quite a useful one for us to build, and then maybe integrate some APIs for the big shipping carriers as well. So yeah, watch this space. I think that'll probably go on our list. Fingers crossed.
While I remember, for anybody looking at payment gateways and even shipping or something like that, do have a look at some of the tools out there that consolidate those, or a bit like Zapier, offer multiple ones. Primer, I think, one of the best for payment gateways. Might be worth having a look at them. And there's plenty for shipping, I think. Just to answer the question specifically, Grant, on, or well, I think it was your point, Nick, about having those as defaults. Our problem is we just don't want to cause bloat. We don't want to make everything a default, because in some cases it's useful. So obviously there are times where it's useful every time, and that's when we will look at putting them in. But yeah, great to hear that you guys are looking at modules.
Yeah, I tell you what would be really nice is, which I think is probably already on the roadmap. It's just having that ability to actually, rather than having lots of things in custom fields. So we end up with, we've got like 16 poplets in a custom field, and then the weight of the product, and then volumetric size of the product. If we could kind of choose to be able to categorize those, and have the flexibility when we're creating custom fields to group them, that would be that would be a really nice.
Is that not custom field sets?
Field sets, yeah.
I'm not sure that it is. Not sure that it is custom field sets.
I mean, we've been through this dilemma, and I believe that's the use case that custom field sets still have, is when you want to group some fields together. But
trouble with that is you end up with, unless this is changed with the new changes within e-commerce, as to because obviously if you've got 1,000 products, you've then got 1,000 weights. Is that 1,000 new database items just to hold the weight of the product, because it's a custom field set rather than a custom field?
I believe it would be with a custom field set. The idea of when to use custom field sets, I think, and again, it's up for debate really, you can use it however you want, would be when they're only needed in some cases, because normally you'd build the custom fields, but they appear everywhere. And if you actually only need them on, say, 10% of your product, you might be better off, you might prefer just to add a custom field set in those scenarios. But you're right, it's down to usage as well. And custom fields is probably a better option at that point.
Yeah. Cool. Any other feedback or questions from anybody?
Is there any move on having the ability to bulk upload images? I have a client with an auction site, and I've had to train him how to use CLI, and that's a real pain in the neck.
So you can grab some images using the file manager. Are you talking about a big number of images?
Yeah, it's an auction site. Every month he has to upload around about 2,000 images.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, tied in with the web app.
Yeah, that probably comes back to the point that we were talking about with Rox about better API support for assets. I think assets being images, PDFs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It does sound like an area we could expand upon for you. But obviously also making it simpler and not something that a developer has to do. So that might be something that, depending on how niche it is a marketplace module. It might just be that, yes, we could look at I'm trying to think the problem if we do it with something like a UI is the processing of that. Like actually processing something like 2,000 images via a UI is not the best way of doing it. So that's typically why CLI is a better route, I believe. So we'll have to look at that one.
Okay.
I'm surprised there isn't an easy to use CLI interface that you can just download and have on your machine. Maybe that's what somebody needs to build.
CLI,
yeah.
I think Josh actually probably might know a bit about that, but I know you can build apps for things like Visual Studio or whatever IDE you use. I don't know if you can build visual ones or drag and drop. No idea. I assume not, but.
What have you done, Josh? 'Cause
Yeah.
you've done some color stuff and all sorts, haven't you? I think.
Yeah, so I well, it's not nowhere near complete, but I made a Aspen plugin that every time you open a file locally on your machine, actually checks on the SiteGlide server to see if that file has been updated. So it almost acts in an FTP-esque sort of way, meaning that you don't have to pull all the time. Obviously, it's not going to pull files that you don't already have on your local directory, so pull is still required. But yeah, it was there to check and make sure that, especially if you've got multiple people working on the same files, that you've always got the most up-to-date version. Definitely going to be looking at exploring that sort of stuff in the future, especially as we're looking at moving more towards providing modules to community partners. I think that sort of functionality could be really useful. But yeah, there's loads of possibilities that you can do with code extensions and stuff. And SiteGurus, we've personally built desktop applications to help us manage our SiteGlide sites. And so, yeah, the possibilities really are out there. It's just a case of putting the time together to build it.
Just to put you on the spot quickly, don't worry if you can't answer it, but more to Graham's point, it was about not having to use the CLI for bulk images. Can you think of a scenario there that is not wildly bad in terms of processing power that's possible?
Yeah, again, it's a difficult one because you've got a heavy reliance on the API there, as opposed to more of a traditional CLI base. But it's definitely possible. Whether it will fit everybody's use requirements, I don't know. You could potentially build something where you bulk upload the files, you can manage them, rename them, organize them. But yeah, it's a significant amount of work, but anything is possible.
Okay, thanks.
I've seen other platforms that have like they'll have a tool or functionality that enables sync between, say, Dropbox and somewhere. So
yeah, I think that's the point actually when we were talking earlier about the API for assets. If we did then using API or connecting up to third parties might be the solution for that. So you could have a sync between a repository somewhere or cloud hosting. So yeah, definitely. I think us looking into assets, making assets easier to work with is probably the first step there.
Yeah.
With Business Catalyst, you used to be able to append a bit of code at the end of the asset name, as in the graphic, for a thumbnail size. I noticed looking in some of the support documents on your site that someone else had raised that question, and I used to find it really useful. Is that something that you can do on SiteGlide, or?
It was really useful on BC. The fill proportional code, it was really useful. We have talked to Platform OS about it. It would be with them more than with us, I believe. I don't think, I can't remember the exact answer we got to. It's something that would need to be built in, but I believe caching is probably a solution to that. Martin, do you think I'm on the right lines there?
Yeah, there was, right, so it possibly being more transparent than I should be. I believe off the top of my head, they didn't fully explore it because of the amount of work involved. So it might be something they look at later. I think we arrived shorter term at possibly looking at something you do when you upload an image to the site. So effectively you'd upload an image that's 1,000 wide, and then it would say, hey, would you like to resize it and upload a different version? And then you'd end up with like 3 different versions of the same image on the site, is effectively where we started looking. But obviously that's not ideal for usage. So it depends. Each one has drawbacks for now. But it is something we would like to see. We used it all the time on BC. So
yeah, because you end up uploading a very high quality image for certain things, but when you also reusing that image elsewhere on the site, you want it smaller, but you don't want to make the page too large, particularly if there's lots of images. So yeah, it was really useful.
I believe from a page loading perspective, we've almost got a better solution than BC in that you can cache the whole page and you can control the caching. So actually you can have it running way faster than on BC. The downside, I imagine off the top of my head, is SEO, because an audit would still see that image as bigger than it needs to be, even though it's cached. So it might still be something to look at. I think, to be honest, the honest answer for now is really optimizing images if you really want to get that top level optimization, I guess. But caching can have a huge impact, positive impact for SEO.
Okay, thank you. Just one other thing, I've been using the code editor a little bit, just for odd bits and pieces within the system. And if you do a search for a string within that code editor, because the background is black, it doesn't highlight it very visibly when it finds the thing that you're searching for. So if you're searching, for instance, for a certain file name within a big piece of JavaScript, when it says it's found it, it's almost impossible to see the bit that's highlighted because it's on a black background, and the highlight color is like a very dark gray, so it's kind of pointless.
Yeah,
I do remember that question from that point from probably over a year ago, and I've not actually heard it since. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, I definitely mentioned that some time ago.
It's quite a small update from what I remember talking to the team about, but it's just not been a priority in the lead up to BC end of life, I guess. So I've noted that down. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, at some point we could offer the ability to pick your own theme, I guess, for code. But yeah, in the interim, just making it a little bit clearer would probably be a good fix. Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Which color would you like?
Too busy theming the front of sites. Don't worry about the. Don't worry about
that. True.
And if you had a preference, which color would you like it?
Just something that's visible. It's impossible to see it, Martin. It's a very dark gray against a black background, and you actually can't see it. So it's, I just don't understand how it's been coded that way, because it's the worst possible highlight color. I mean, it could be a bright yellow, it could be bright green or something, or even white, just something that is not the same color as the background.
Sure.
Can I just share my screen a second?
Yeah,
I just want to check we're sort of coming out the same thing. Let me, it's a small point, but if I can find the right screen.
Yeah, I certainly found it in Code Editor.
Are we talking about this?
Yeah.
If you can see my screen.
Yeah, if you do Command F now.
Yeah.
And then search for menu, say.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe it's on the actual code bits. Oh, okay. Do you mean that there?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, it jumps to the place where you find that piece of text or code. But yeah, it's just not massively apparent, and then you have to kind of scroll up and down visually looking for it, which can take another 15 or so seconds.
In particular, if you're looking at, say, a minified piece of JavaScript where the entire screen is full of text and you're trying to make a quick edit, maybe to a path name or whatever.
Yeah, have a look in Code Editor, and just because I'm sure it's not as strong as that in Code Editor.
Yeah, it's Code Editor that's the issue.
It doesn't do the whole line, which does make it a little harder. Yeah, but yeah, maybe something like CSS would be a little harder to read.
Yeah, when you've got 500 lines, and it'll jump you to roughly the right place, but you don't know whether it's top of the page, bottom of the page. So, yeah, you then end up kind of close but no cigar.
Okay, thought I'd just double check we were looking at the same thing. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
One other idea would be being able to have choose the template that's for a category, or so that the page that's going to display for different categories, because you might be using categories for different things, and so the standard one for all of them doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I actually hit that the other day. It's not often I do code, but yeah, I definitely hit that issue. Martin, that is, you'd have to write Liquid at the moment, I believe, to cater for the different options.
You would. It is possible to work around it at the moment. I believe we have it on the roadmap for individual web app items, so I would imagine I would need to check the task and see if we're including categories there, but if not, we can take a look. But at the moment, yeah, you can do an if statement either based on URL or perhaps location, or if a certain item's been outputted within the page. There's different ways of doing it for now as a workaround, although not ideal.
Yeah, so that workaround's okay if you've got maybe two types of things, but when you've got using categories for, say, 8 or 9 different things, then your code is really complex. So.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, cool. And Josh, I'm dying to ask, what desktop apps have you made for SiteGlide? And will you be sharing them with the community?
Yeah, so the main one is actually in SiteGurus. Obviously, as part of the SiteGuru system, we track credits, and we need a way to be able to track those credits. And so we built a desktop app to start timers, stop timers, edit timers, and delete timers. So yeah, really useful functionality for the devs to just have there on their desktop and not have to jump forward and back in the browser, and just focus on their work. Hopefully going to get a mobile app at some point, but yeah, less of a priority, to be honest. But yeah, it shows that it's definitely possible to create these sorts of experiences using the platform.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, sort of accidentally ended up building ClickUp, it seems, or project management tool.
Yeah. So all of SiteGurus, I'm sure the people who use SiteGurus know this already, but yeah, all of SiteGurus is built within SiteGlide, and we're not reliant on any external providers. Apart from assets, we do use an external provider for that, but apart from that, everything is SiteGlide.
Nice. External asset for what, like loading them on the serving them to the page, or storing?
Yeah, so because there's very little reliance on, well, there's no reliance on having our users or us being always in the SiteGlide admin to make changes. We're able to work in CLI a lot more often. That means that we can have our images hosted on a platform called Cloudinary, and they actually allow for the image resizing. So we use them for that essentially, to make sure that images are optimized when we upload them. But yeah, that's the only real reason why we use it. If we were using the SiteGlide admin, it would obviously be harder to use that, as that's an external company that's doing that, and they're not too friendly with the API. But because we can use it and we don't have any customers who need to use that asset management, we can get away with it.
Fair enough.
Linking that back. Go on, Martin.
What possibly saying, I'm about to say something, but is that possibly a solution for like for proportional for now then?
I was going to say, linking it back to Glenn's question, we definitely did look at that at the time. Cloudinary was one of them, but yeah, it's a little more complicated than that when you're trying to run it for a whole platform.
Right. And it's just another thing that adds cost to your build, and it's definitely not suitable for everyone. The built-in SiteGlide asset management is perfect for a lot more use cases than Cloudinary necessarily would be. But if your use case suits it, it's definitely an option that you can use to integrate with SiteGlide.
Cool, good to know. Thanks. All righty. Well, we are past the top of the hour. I don't know, did anybody else have any other questions or feedback they would like to discuss? It's the final town hall of the year. Oh, and I have dates to share for next year before everyone heads off as well, so we all know what's going on. I might do that now, just while everyone's having a think. So let's take a look. Oh, I see. It's taking me off to the blog post again. I clicked the wrong place. There we go. I don't know what happened there. Apologies. Right, here we go. So, schedule for next year. Important key dates. So, the first of the year is the advisory board. So obviously that's available to the board members. The first one of those will be on the 18th, so Tuesday, the 18th of January, at the usual times for all of you there. We're introducing the first training session, training webinar, which the topic is using CLI, and that will be on the 25th of January. For now, we're probably going to stick to these usual times, so about 10 p.m. I might look at adjusting and doing like 2 to cater for Australia and America a bit more easily, but we'll look at that after the first one. So yeah, all about using CLI, getting that installed, Windows, Mac, key commands, how you can go about using that, which will set us up nicely for our next topic, which will be on how to build modules. And then the first town hall of the year will be on the 1st of February, the way the dates work out. So that's Tuesday the 1st at the usual time as well, 10 p.m. So those are your key dates for January and February. Excellent. Did anybody have any final questions before we wrap things up? No? Okay, well, I guess that leaves us just to wish you all a Merry Christmas, slightly early, but seeing as we won't be on calls with you until the new year. And yeah, enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you all next year.
See you guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy